Welcome to the English Hour on ا.ن.ن, the first in a new series of programs. We're very pleased to have you with us for this new concept, actually. We haven't had a program of this kind on ا.ن.ن before. We hope you will enjoy it. We hope it will bring new ideas to you, the audience. And we're very, very privileged on this occasion to have Her Royal Highness, Princess Basmah Bint Saud bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, the youngest daughter of King Saud. She's a lady with a Syrian mother. She is educated in the United Kingdom and in Beirut. She's a real citizen of the world. And she's an advocate of good governance and of reform. She's a strong believer in human rights. And she has worked on and penned a new concept, which is the fourth way law. She'll tell us something of this in the future. But first we'll start with a little discussion about an issue close to all of our hearts, Syria itself. Princess Basmah, could you maybe we could start by just talking a little about the present situation in Syria today, the way things are going, your feeling. I mean, people often talk about looking at a donut, if you like, and you can look at the donut, or you can look at the hole in the middle. You can look at a situation and you can be depressed by it, or you can see some hope. Do you see hope in Syria today?
First, thank you very much, William, for this introduction. And when I talk about Syria, I talk about a homeland. I don't talk about a land of killings and massacres. I don't talk about a land which is just beyond the television screen. I talk and I think of it as somewhere where I have been for the last 3 years. Lots of people have not actually been there. Lots of decision makers and making have been done overseas. So hope is actually been always there. And I've said it from the beginning, actually. It is a city and a country of all civilization. You cannot actually just swipe hope from that place in a 3 years war, or a revolution, if you'd like to say, you know, to name it that, and to put it in that form. But this is what the rebels, the government, the citizens have fought for, is hope.
And do you feel that's coming? I mean, we have a situation now that such a large proportion of the population are displaced. I know you've worked yourself in the camps and have been to the refugee camps. Displaced internally as well as displaced externally, and people are talking about figures that they snatch from the air. People say that there are 2.5 million or whatever Syrians outside the country, but nobody really knows.
Well, I can give you, a better actually number than the UN. I've been there. I know the numbers because the people who are registering the incomers and without passing by the UN offices, or going to al-Zaatari camps in Jordan or to Turkey and in Lebanon, where it's wildlife for everybody. Everybody crosses on a daily basis, even without stopping. I think I would fairly say that they are around 10 million.
Really?
Syrian refugees, yes.
Syrian refugees outside the country?
Outside the country,
But that's nearly, I mean, the population of Syria must be 23, 24 million.
Well, it's 27.
Really? That's higher than the estimates I've seen. 27.
Definitely. It's 27 million. This is for the records, the last time they've done it, like 2 years before the revolution. Right. And I've seen actually Syrians even in the States. In North America. I know some of them went to Africa. Some of them actually, of course, the Arab world have not received them, except Jordan and Lebanon and Iraq. Some of them even went to Iran. So you've got big number which has not been publicized to the public where they have gone. But there is a big, huge number that is not there on the record.
And of course the international community has been pledging aid. In Kuwait there was a conference, they talked about sums in terms of billions of dollars, but it doesn't really reach the Syrian refugees.
No, they don't. I mean, William, you know, this is very, very astonishing, is that over the past 3 years I heard billions, the name of, you know, billions being donated to these refugees and camps. And when I went down there, there's nothing. And I mean, there is nothing. I've even had, you know, some conversations and dialogues with the Qatari, you know, head of state and prime minister, and you know, pledging them to oversee their donations, where they're going, because I know they're doing it for all the good intents and purposes, even in Kuwait, even in Saudi Arabia. But it's not getting there. Yes. And everybody has to understand this is a humanitarian responsibility. Is when I donate, I have to make sure that this donation gets to the source. Otherwise, if I donate billions and it goes to the hands of terrorist parties, it will just do harm. And this is exactly by not supervising where my donations are going. People are starving. Children are dying. There are no hospitals. The injuries of the people, I mean, you know, you can see it in one of my shots that I have actually taken down in Lebanon. People are hiding in rooms with diseases, and there is nobody there to take care of them, not even medication, not even the simplest kind of first aid. Bread is scarce. Yes. Water is scarce. Everything is just, you know, really in a very bad condition. And everybody is thinking that in the United Nations and in the States and everywhere I look on the screen, in the media, I hear humanitarian aid, humanitarian assistance, humanitarian. There is a resistance there of people saying, no, it will not get there. And I know, you know, there are so many things that you just cannot actually say it on. So
what you're saying, in effect, is that this money is going into other causes. I mean,
yes.
And indeed, what we're stoking up is the war. In a sense, is what you're implying. I mean, certainly.
Yes.
There is a vast, vast amount of money going into Syria. To presumably to support this ongoing civil war. Do you see this? Yeah, you seem to be a person that sees the cup half full rather than the cup half empty. You do believe in hope for the future. Do you see this stopping? What do you?
Of course, you know, without hope, you can't even walk or talk or even think or plan. If you don't have hope, how can you sit down and even actually think of the next generation or what to be in the future? If you don't have hope and you don't give hope even to the injured, to the refugees who actually are dreaming of hope, what is the war was all about? What was all these revolutions are about? But hope.
So you would hope for a new, well, some sort of peace talk, producing some sort of new constitution ultimately. And then elections. Is that the vision you have, basically, of the step towards a better Syria?
I think you know, in the time of crisis, elections are very hard to guarantee, as in the result. First and foremost, there must be security. Without security, you cannot have neither freedom, neither elections. You can have elections, but you cannot guarantee the results. you can't have education. Education is the prime soul of every day's people's bread and water. These things, when do not exist on the floor, you cannot have anything which is related to a good system that can provide for these people. After all this chaotic situation, I hope for an election, but this election has to come after having secured land where people can go to posts and elect. If you cannot provide this for the people, how can you have elections? This is why, in this midst, in the midst of all the wars and revolutions, and I have written the Fourth Way Law.
Yes, and this has there are 4 principles it's based on.
Yes,
right?
4 pillars.
Which are
security, equality, freedom, and education. And it is by steps.
Okay.
It's not actually, they're not on the same line.
But you would like to see this as a foundation for a constitution, not just in Syria, but in other countries. But in the Syrian context, you would ideally like to see any new constitution based on those pillars: education, security, freedom, and the 4th was?
Education.
Education, yes. Security, freedom.
Security.
And equality.
Equality, freedom, and education.
Yeah.
I think, in all any era through time, the best time to plant a seed is a wartime or revolution time. So as it is ready to grow and to, as they say, they've called all the revolution in the Arab world the spring, Arab Spring. I don't see it as spring at all. I see it as the fall.
Because each of those principles, education, freedom, security, and equality, are totally absent, well, are largely absent from the Syria we see today, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's totally, lacking in the Arab world. Then we can go to the third world, which is the African continent, which is the South American continent. We can actually even go to Asia. All these places have so many things lacking. This is where the Fourth Way Law can intervene. It's like an injection. It's like a medication, not to destabilize governments. It's actually to stabilize governments on 4 pillars, which can execute humanitarian conditions for the individual without revolutions or contempt of personas.
But is democracy a pillar of this approach, or is it is not?
I mean, if you have these 4 pillars,
yes.
In any society, you will have democracy. And if one of them is missing, you will never have democracy. Democracy has been misinterpreted by the West as in a concept to apply in the East. Democracy can never be applied as in the West to the East, and this is where everybody actually is falling upon. Democracy itself is a concept, isn't it? So is this democracy what you eat in Italy should be eaten in Sweden?
Perhaps not. Yes.
So these ingredients should not be the rule.
But what's
the law?
But then, what is the ingredient in the Syrian soup? You're going to have this situation. I mean, you have these international powers interfering in Syria: Iran and Turkey. You have Saudi Arabia, Russia, the whole world, America.
The whole world is actually
yes.
have put themselves in the soup, the bowl of soup, and there's no way out. You know, I'll tell you something, William. You know, we have to be very realistic in our approach, and at the same time, we have to be very frank with ourselves and the world. Everybody is watching the scene, and we have to say that this scene has not just been created in Syria in one day. The revolution is still going on in Egypt, still going on in Tunisia, still going on in Iraq, still going on in Lebanon. So why Syria is the one that's actually causing trouble for everybody? For one thing, they could not change it from the outside.
Yes, indeed. Well, it
has resisted. It has, and it will resist. I mean, in my opinion, Syria, the solution in Syria will only come from the inside, not the outside. Everybody is trying to put their hand in a very foreign land.
So you have no faith in the Geneva process that's taking place, or at least it's suspended at the moment, but presumably will resume.
And you know, William, you know, I think, you know, we've talked before, and I've told you several times since the beginning of the Syrian revolution, I don't see the result coming from outside at all. I talk to my family, friends in Syria on a daily basis. Different parts of Syria. I've been there maybe a year and a half ago. I'm really talking about real life, not media or what the governments want to think that they are doing. I mean, you have to listen to the sound of reason, to the sound of the people of the house, not outside. Now, anybody who would try, I mean, let's make it very simple. Anybody who would try to interfere in your life inside your home and tell you that, don't put this book here, don't sit here. I'm gonna actually impose on you something which is very good for you, actually, William, but you will not accept it.
No, I probably wouldn't like it.
Would you? But I mean, even if you're smoking in your house, and somebody comes from outside and tells you, well, you're smoking, you're not allowed to smoke. It's not good for you to smoke, and I'm going to get you adopted.
Syria is a country that's ripping itself apart, though, and
but
so I mean, does it need some external actors to come and say, whoa, wait a minute? I mean, surely if we perhaps
all the forces that has been there, they helped in ripping. They have not helped in putting together. You know, I'm being very realistic, actually, William. You know, it's not wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is something, and realistic solutions are completely different issues. Being a Syrian inside Syria is a completely different scene than sitting here in London and looking at them behind the media. Being in the refugee camps when I was there was a completely different, actually, scene than seeing them on television. It's a completely different environment.
And yet we have a situation now where technically President Bashar al-Assad is reaching the end of his 7-year term. And were we not in the middle of a major civil war, then on the 10th of May, 7 years on from the last elections in the 10th of May 2004, and he had a 7-year term, then 10th of May this year, he should be standing for re-election. Do you see a situation in which this crisis in Syria can be resolved while President Bashar al-Assad remains in place, or is that an unfair question?
I think it's not, you know, it's unfair for me to answer even.
Yeah.
You know, it's not for me to answer these things. It's actually the Syrian population, and nobody has asked the Syrians inside, you know, other than the government. You know, there is something called the Syrian people inside their country, and everybody has been overlooking these people. All these people who have maintained the 4 pillars from falling in were where are their voice? Why actually we are not prepared to hear them? If you ask, where are they? They're there. You only have to shine the light, and they'll pop up, and they will tell you, actually, that this is our home, and we're going to fix it. And if you bring the best system in the world in the name of the West and democracy, we don't want it. Even if we have to live with poisonous environment on a daily basis, we don't want foreign intervention. Are you going to listen?
Well, I would think so, but you have major players. I mean, Iran, for instance. I mean, Iran, some would argue that perhaps one of the major problems in terms of the Syrian situation is that the West is not engaging Iran in the solution. The West is offering concessions to Iran on the nuclear issue, but not making those trade-offs. In other words, not saying, okay, Iran, if you want to be able to develop nuclear power and so on, then let's have some concessions from you on Syria. Do you think Iran has a key role, or?
You know, every player, every single player who has started the game has a say. If everybody says on the table, we're going to quit the game, the whole place will fall together.
But is that really likely? Are we going to see people?
I mean, now we're busy with Ukraine, aren't we?
Yes, it's certainly affecting Russian policy.
Exactly. And Russian policy is backing Iranian policies. And Iranian policies are backing Syrian policies. So it's like a chain reaction. It's what comes, goes back. It's just like a domino effect.
Yes.
So if you want to find out what's going to happen next, you have to listen to the whole world. You can't just say that Syria will have a solution, a magical solution that everybody would love to have. And Geneva II has just proved that Geneva I had nothing to do with Geneva II.
Well, exactly, yes, that is true.
So why would you call Geneva II if Geneva, you know, that is a completely different issue from Geneva
Nonetheless,
I.
it is a process. At least there is something going on, and you do need a process.
But I think, you know, it's fair to say that if you want a solution, you should call things by their names, rather than just actually providing a haven.
And you mentioned the crisis in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you see that as making the Russians more likely to give concessions with regard to Syria?
That's the game. I mean, this is why.
Or vice versa? Are they going to be more hard line?
No, I think the game has been played properly, and I think they will give something for something. Right. And as in an international scene, you know, as I've seen several cases in history being solved in that way, has an implication as to where the Syrian scene is.
So the Russians get Crimea, and then they're more flexible on Syria, is what you're saying, as a concession in return.
Definitely, but one thing you have to know actually is that, William, I know that everybody thinks that the players are everything, and I'm sure, in my opinion, that this is not so. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Daesh packing and leaving the place. You wouldn't have lots of opposition leader groups leaving their posts and giving in their guns to the government.
Do you think that's happening?
Oh yes, and I've got reports in different places.
But the government is also under pressure, no?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
You know, the government is under pressure. The opposition's inside, not outside, are under pressure. Everybody's leaving the scene, and they're left with nothing. not even the weapons. I know the EU have lifted the sanctions to be able to arm the opposition inside, but it did not actually vibrate well inside.
It hasn't been really.
It hasn't been successful at all, and these opposition leaders and refugees and the victims of war, as I like to name them, because they are the victims, while we are the seers and doers. Are there with no medication, no money, no education, no freedom, no equality, no security.
So, Princess Basmah, let's talk. We've been talking about Syria, but this fourth law that you believe in is relevant, presumably, to the wider world. We have a Middle East, just looking at the Middle East alone, that is ripping itself apart in some ways less violently than Syria, but nonetheless we have crises in Bahrain, in Libya, in Egypt, in Sudan. Do you see this fourth law, this concept, as being even remotely useful in this context?
William, actually, when I thought of writing the Fourth Way law, it's called the Fourth Way law. It's not the fourth law.
Okay.
So it's not the fourth elements that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fourth way, which comes after trying three ways. So for me, it's like
trying three ways. What are the first three?
Okay, the first for me. I mean, this is how I conceived the whole concept. The first one was back in Greece, Socrates and democracy.
Yes. Okay.
We've tried the second concept, which is communism and socialism, and
yes, indeed.
we've tried monarchies.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we have void now.
Right.
Republics are based on democracy or monarchies or socialism.
Yes.
So I think now we have a void on this planet where nothing is evident for the future of these generations to come. There is no solutions on the ground that is applicable anywhere in the world. One place it's a revolution, another place it's economical crisis, another place it's disasters, another place it's actually poverty and so on and so on and so on. And I thought, what is happening? What is the solution? How can we give hope to the next generations, to my children, to your children, to these youth who are looking up to us for a solution? Are we going to just leave them in the midst of this chaotic scene around the world? Are we going to pull them out and up and give them something, a tool, which they can climb that mountain to escape the flood?
So you believe these principles: security, education, freedom, and equality. I mean, they're very idealistic. Well, some would say education. Obviously, everybody believes in education, but you're talking about a basis for a fair society with justice.
Well, I'm talking about basics. I'm not saying fair society. I'm saying that you should provide basics to your citizen,
but then
to the citizen of the world. Let's say that. Now we have monarchies, we have money, some in places, we have wealth.
Yes, and dictatorships and so on.
But like Africa. I mean, everybody has been feeding on Africa. Well, Africa is richer than all the world.
But so would you when you say equality, do you mean equality of opportunity or
everything? Yes, equality of opportunity. equality of distribution, wealth distribution in the country itself. Like if I build something for London, it has to be, I have to build the same for Manchester. Instead of having all these actually migrating to London or to these big cities, I have to provide equal opportunities to those in the countryside. So I would help in actually balancing societies and taking people backwards instead of actually having all these people fight over a small piece of cake.
So what you believe in is fair play rather than socialism. You're not talking about equality in the old...
Definitely.
Yeah.
It just provides the basics, and you let people go on their way and do what they have to do to be rich, to be wealthy, to be super rich. It's up to their it's up to them, up to their future. But as an institution, as a government, you have to distribute well the wealth of the government. Whatever actually you get, you don't place it and patch it in places while you leave other places empty. This is what the fourth way is all about.
And education similarly. I mean,
and education is similar. Is I provide for the individual the same opportunity as I provide for the rich by giving everybody on hopefully on this planet one mathematical system.
Well, of course, nobody
one
has...
size system. So everybody would know how everybody's talking about. What you talk about, I understand in China, because we have globalization these days, don't we? Aren't we calling for inter-civilization dialogue? We're talking about inter-dialogue of faith. We're talking about inter-dialogues without having the basics to go about these things. So if I want to know what you're talking about in your faith and in your language and in your culture, I have to know the basics of your math and sciences.
But nobody has equality of opportunity in education. I mean, whether you're talking in America, not there, it's not here in Britain.
So there is a void. There is, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm saying, William. That there isn't. Not even in England, not even in America. That's why it's a system that is injectable in America, in Britain, anywhere in the world, to balance these unbalances that is occurring even from the best democratic systems. My fourth way law, as I call it, is not a system that has to do anything with culture or the basic system of a country. It is basics of 4 pillars where all systems can build there.
Well, then let's take the issue of freedom. Yes. I mean, freedom
means
many things. I mean, I've often thought that Roosevelt's 4 freedoms are very sound. The idea of freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. But, I mean, you mean human rights? What do you mean? Are the rights of mankind? When you say freedom, do you mean what
freedom. I say freedom in a completely different way of what Roosevelt said it, because at Roosevelt's time, this is what it meant for him. This is what it meant for their time. This is what was lacking. For us, what I think is lacking is that we have to respect each other's freedoms. We have to put these laws that are not there online. We have to define the freedom of the other so we can have our freedom, because I believe that my freedom stops where your freedom begins. Freedom has been abused in this century. Freedom has been taken as a tool for revolutions and wars and abuse and discrimination. Every time you talk about freedom, well, it's there in your house. You're free. It's your freedom in your thoughts. Your freedom inside, it's actually, freedom is there, but you're not seeing it.
But you yourself are a columnist. You're talking, is freedom of expression, the freedom to, freedom of the press, if you like, to put it basically. Is that fundamental to this concept of freedom?
Definitely. It's how far you're willing to stretch, William. You know, when I went to Lebanon in 2007 and Egypt, and I was writing in Saudi Arabia, in Uqa, in Al-Medina newspaper. I was writing in Al-Watan. I was writing in Al-Ihram. I was writing in so many places things that shocked people. And when I went to Turkey, to Yildiz University, and I did a conference there. I attended a conference and I did the welcoming speech, the keynote speech. And an academic told me, "Are you free to talk the same way in your country?" And I said, "I've been talking for the past 3 years and nobody has stopped me." When I went to Lebanon, it was, I wish we can have the same freedom of writing as in your country. I was told this in Beirut 3 years ago when I was writing in Al-Medina in Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Yes. And I still have interviews.
You mean you have more freedom of expression in Saudi Arabia
than Lebanon? Journalists now in Lebanon are very, very quiet because they cannot actually express their freedom of thought because they're scared of the consequences.
Yes,
they don't have security.
Yes, yes.
While in Saudi Arabia, I was very secure to investigate everything around. And I know you find it very, very intriguing. And I'm sure everybody behind the screen is going to go, "Come on, she's just actually saying this about her country." I am not. You can verify that by going online to my fan Facebook 2007. You can trace everything I am saying back to where I was in Egypt. I was actually doing preparing for the college for security of women, the first security college in the Middle East or in the world, only for women. You can train them to go as bodyguards and security entities in all entities, which is nuclear, factories, banks, hospitals, everything actually which is concerned.
So you believe in equality of opportunity for women as well?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I believe that there is a big misunderstanding of the name equality. Equality for women, even in America, wasn't there a year ago.
Clearly true, yes.
And I was challenged to say why in one of the big parties. I was actually doing a keynote speech, and I said, in Jordan, women were fighting on they had the arms and fighting with the army since the last century,
yes,
and you just gave them actually the right to go. And so it is a way, you know, equality in your country is completely different than mine, but there are basics that each society should have as a minimum, which we have lost totally over the years because we have accumulated so many human rights laws over the basic ones that we have lost trace of the basic ones.
And the other pillar you're mentioning is security. I mean,
and this is the first pillar and the most important pillar of all.
Yet everybody in the whole world would agree that we want security. I mean, you're not unique in that. The trouble is in delivering it, isn't it? I mean...
no, the trouble is in understanding it. I believe that the security of the individual is more important than the security of the homeland.
Right.
Well, everybody puts the security of the homeland before the security of the individual. And thus, they penetrate your life, your freedom, your equality in the name of security. I go the whole way around that. And I say, from the individual security, you will have homeland security, not the other way around.
How interesting. That is an interesting concept. And you feel that is achievable? I mean, governments want to corral their people and rule them, and but you think you would...
Since we are talking about the era of the people, this is the time to plant the seed. Aren't we talking about the people? The revolutions is all about people. It's all about giving rights to people. So are we talking gibberish? If we're talking about freedom and equality and education and the freedom of thought, aren't we basically talking about the security to be able to perform all these of the individual? So this is, it's not what you want to give. It is what is my right.
Absolutely.
For you, for anybody to take or give.
Well, you've almost converted me. Do you think? I mean, is it really practical in the context of the Middle East? Are we talking
about? It's practical in any system whatsoever.
We're not talking about some wild dream.
No, I've sent it to so many universities. I've sent it to my government. And it's already actually been sent to the Ministry of Interior in my government. It's sent to the King. And I've been debating it on my Twitter, which is more than 120,000. I've converted around 500,000 in my country. So if I can convert 500,000 in my country, I can convert 5 billion in the world. Can't I? If it's done in one society, which is one of the most conservative societies in the world, you can convert the rest, because it's not because it's my system. I have not called it Basmah system. I have called it the fourth way law, because I am dealing with the 4 elements of nature. You
believe these 4? I mean, people come out with ideas.
It's not the idea. It's not the idea itself as much as we can. It's the practical thing in life that is everybody is missing. We are all on tweets and Facebook and internet. We do not see each other anymore. We do not see that we have 2 legs and 2 arms. We do not see that we have 4 seasons. We do not see that we have 4 poles. We do not see that the car moves with 4 wheels. What is practical, what is real, moves on 4. Even animals, they run on 4. So you are saying, I see the solution, but I don't want it. I see the cure, but it's not reasonable. Why?
But you really genuinely believe that these are the... I mean, we've seen political movements that are based on concepts. The Ba'ath Party in Syria, based on socialism and Arab nationalism and so forth.
But this is all actually, it was for the benefit of one party over the other. This is for it's actually benefit of all society.
And you don't see this as a political movement. It's not a...
It's a humanitarian, 100%. Social, 100%. Economic, 100%. Has nothing to do with politics. I will never accept, personally, I mean, it's up to people. I will never accept in my country other than the king, my king, and his successors. But I would like to see a system.
Okay. And you think, I mean, you could see this being implemented? Do you want to see it implemented as part of the constitution of a country?
Definitely, because I think, if you concentrate always on who's on top, you will never run a country. And once you lose that top, the whole country falls down. So what kind of a good system that depends on only one hand? You have to have 2 hands to clap. And you're relying on one hand to make a noise. So you're just making more air and air and air and more chaotic environment. You have to have a system that runs, if the conservatives are there, or liberals are there, or democrats are there, or anybody is there, a good system that is run by an electrical entity that has nothing to do who's there. This entity will be actually as the driver of the seat, but not the four wheels and not the engine.
But many people will see you as a dreamer, that really you are
living
in...
definitely. Socrates was a dreamer. Democracy was a dream. Socialism was a dream. Yes. Everything in life was a dream. Flying was a dream. People were crucified because they were witches, because they created science. So everything started with a dream, William. You know, we have to realize that you're telling me exactly what my ancestor told other people. You're dreaming. And one day they just woke up and said, well, it's not a dream anymore, it is reality. So this is what I am giving the world as a whole, a hope to a better future, better economy, stronger governments that do not rely actually on their corruption or their good being or well-being.
So Princess Basmah, we have the fourth law, we have a world that's broken. We see Syria today and the crisis that's there. Where do you, I mean, the most vulnerable in our society, I suppose, are the very young, the very old. The most neglected in our society are the very young and the very old. Do you see, you look at a country like Egypt going through transition, a country like Libya that has been through transition and has failed to find a way forward. Do you really see the world as having a chance at being a safer place? We go from war to war to war, don't we, really?
That's, I mean, you know, when you look at history, I mean, especially the recent one, the older one, it's always been like empire gone, empire coming. It's only like we take time for relaxation, and we prosper for a few years, and then crash. Something crashes the all humanitarian systems all around the world. And that's why we had World War I, World War II, and before that, even if it's not called war, World War, it is a world war, but the world wasn't big as now.
But there seems to be no end to war, does it?
Definitely, it's like, you know, going over and over again the same clip in a movie.
I mean, presumably war is based on hubris, on false pride. That is what's driving people to fight one another continually.
But haven't we learned through the centuries that the wars have done nothing except stopped evolution? We have evolved in sciences and mathematics, but did we evolve in ethics?
No. Do you believe that history shapes individuals, or do individuals shape history? Do we actually have any control of our destiny?
I think individuals have shaped history enough in our times than we can count on. Hitler, Mussolini, Gaddafi, Mubarak, Assad. It's always been the individual that we are fighting, not the system. I mean, it's always been that person there, Gandhi, Putin, Obama. You know, it's always like Obama time, Bush time. You know, it's always that name, that individual that is shaping the era. It's about time to leave that, to release that dream.
You mentioned Gandhi. Are you a pacifist then? Is that your, I mean...
Definitely not. I mean, you know, I'm not, you know, I am a very...
pragmatic? No.
Let's say I'm a very balanced person. I do not believe in peace as 60s or Gandhi's, or I don't believe in war like and imposing on people like Mussolini and Hitler and all these people. I don't believe in having ultimate power. It's the ultimate of anything, which is gives that kind of power to corrupt other people and other people's lives and unbalance other people's lives.
So you stand against extremism?
Definitely.
Even in religion?
Even in especially in religion.
Right.
Especially in religion. How many massacres have we actually succeeded in doing in the name of religion? How many eras have vanished, and people and countries and heritage because in the name of religion? Either it's Christianity or Judaism or Judaism or Islam. It's always been that fight for that religion or another, while all religions and all messengers have come with a peace.
So do you believe, do you believe that there should be some distinction drawn between religion and politics, or is there a place for religion in politics?
I mean, religion is a very, very personal thing. It's actually something that has to do with between you and God. It has nothing to do with actually going to the mosque or to the church or to the synagogue. It has nothing to do with going there or actually applying it in front of people. It is applying it in your day-to-day life. How do you go on about your life? Do you pray the 5 prayers because you want to be close to God, or you do it actually because you want other people to say that you're a believer? Do you not lie? Do you not actually steal in the name of religion? Do you not massacre people in the name of religion? Do you do the bad things that all books in life that has been sent through the messengers have actually forbidden? Killing, have forbidden stealing, have forbidden wars, have forbidden in the name of the Lord.
Yes.
But still we go and do things in the name of the Lord. That is what I believe, that we have surpassed everything in life. We have surpassed religious wars, political wars, economical wars, for water, for bread, for petrol, for gas, for energy. We have left nothing that is not tried, and we have failed in all. Economies are still suffering today. People from west to east are suffering from economical collapse. Does that make your system and your people happier than ours, than in America, than in Africa? No. It's just a matter of percentages. Isn't it time now that to gather forces from these big academics and around the world and scientists to come into one table and create a system and apply it as the fourth way law to balance the world from tilting into nowhere?
But as a self-confessed dreamer, you think this is actually practical? You think
definitely, 100%. If you believe it's going to be practical, and if you tailor it to each country upon its freedom, heritage, culture, religion, it will be applicable 100%.
And it will bring us an end to these internecine wars.
Definitely. It's like an aspirin. It is used for heart, it is used for temperature, it is used for clotting, it is used for so many things. It is that medication, preventive medication from total collapse, from heart attack.
Well, I certainly hope you are right, because they certainly need some new way forward, and it would be a blessing.
And I hope people will embrace it and start taking it seriously. Instead of wars, I think everybody in the world should, not everybody, but the people who have the means to come together and study a small book of 20 pages and consult the team and how to apply it to its own system. It's like an ecosystem. It will save. It will not definitely ruin more.
Well, I do hope you're right. Bless your heart, Princess Basmah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today on this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.